Hi guys, welcome back to SSA Athletics. Today we're going to be reviewing Eliud Kipchoge's sub 2 hour marathon. Of course we won't be doing it all because unless you're an athletics nerd like me. If you are, smash subscribe, check out our other channels, our Facebook pages. Okay guys, as you can see they're starting on a bridge. This is not a usual marathon course. We got to let ourselves know that this course was specifically chosen for it, A, being flat, but also being pretty much a straight line, therefore limiting the number of curves. It's basically a loop going backwards and forwards. And as we go off here from the start, they're utilising the downhill in order to get a faster time. There is no other elevation other than the bit on the bridge. That's the reason why that was chosen specifically. And if you notice, if we coming from the start, this is a highly important part of this this event, and it is an event, not a race, is that the pacemakers have set a specific, they're being set up in a specific way, really, Eliud Kipchoge is, so he can run the most optimal line, and stay roughly in the same position. They funnel in and around him and they create that barrier, if you like, to the wind around him. And it's very quick. They've got to get out quick from the start. So you have your shorter, faster guys at the front, which I mean shorter in distance, faster guys at the front to help press on to get that faster time. Those guys we'll see probably at the later end of the races to help him push through towards the finish. And as we see him coming around the corner, now they're actually on the track itself in Vienna. And like I said before, this has been chosen specifically because of it's almost a straight line. And if you notice, they have a line upon the ground. Eliud Kipchoge will be following that, keeping that optimal position. He is positioned deep in that pack, and that pack has been selected for a specific reason to come in at specific times in a reversed arrow shape, giving him the most amount of, or least amount of wind resistance, so he can run faster. When you're in a peloton, as they say in cycling, or a pack in athletics, the guy in the middle is actually using less energy than the guy at front. Yet again, as they're all racing together, they're all being pushed together because that's how drag works. You're dragging each other along. Of course, the person at the front has to face the resistance of the wind and the elements, so to speak. Now, unlike a normal race, they have access to a pace car, and the pace car will keep at least 4 meters into the distance, and it will project onto the track, or in this case the road they're using on, the line in which will represent the 2 hour barrier, or an optimal barrier, and a barrier, if you really want to go for it kind of barrier. And what we're trying to do is get Eliud Kipchoge, or the pacemakers, to be above that line or in line with those lines, and they positioned where those pacemakers should stand. Now, there has been some debate about whether the car itself actually gives the performance invited aids towards that drag effect. Some say they do, others say it doesn't. As we see, Eliud Kipchoge and the pack are now coming towards that bend, keeping wide, utilising the line which Eliud Kipchoge must run. If you like, it's been a worked out pace line. Think of it as a sports car. You have that race line. This is the optimal line for best performance, the fastest line he can go around that roundabout. And they do so efficiently going around it. Each athlete taking up the correct position to enable him to be on that line. In a way, the way Eliud Kipchoge is running this race, it's like in cycling, a way you have the domestices, the workers, in this case it'd be our pacemakers, and Eliud Kipchoge is the team leader, the Dominique, the leading athlete, so to speak, with the best chance of doing well. Okay, surely they need to do a transition from here. There. Okay, so here we go. They're going into transition here. So changing out the pacemakers. The pacemakers are lined up and they need to time up to make sure they get a running head start. And yep, okay, so what we can notice from here is that they got a certain number of bikes in the background. They are the coaches, the event organisers, and they can also act as a pacemaker. Oh, effectively a Dominique in this situation. They move the bikes in behind, some of them, so it creates a nice V. So it allows the athletes to move around. Some of the athletes will drop off, and the two athletes are sprinting up will come up the side. So that way Eliud Kipchoge is covered, but at the same time you get that whoosh onto that pack itself. And the pack, you can exchange the runners around from the top to the back and eventually out the back itself. Now they've got that sorted, the bike people on the bike can move apart away from that and allow these runners to run on. Otherwise the bikes in theory could potentially hinder that performance, affecting that drag or negative drag upon the athlete itself and the pack. That's look at Eliud Kipchoge's form, and they're moving up from his feet up. Look how just calm and how relaxed he is in that group. Just nice. It's like an easy stroll. You can see he's just not using a lot of energy, and it's because that's how well they planned it, but the pacemaker itself. But it's also a testament to how great Eliud Kipchoge is at the marathon distance. He's one of the greatest athletes of all time in athletics, not just on the road, but on the track itself. So here they are coming across the final few K or not, but here they're so fast. They're even above the pace line here. So they go underneath that tunnel.
The pace car has gone. We've lost the laser.
He's getting
now. It's now all down to Eliud and the pacemaker.
The gloves are off.
He's getting quicker.
He's racing right now. This is racing.
That is so quick. They're so comfortable. Of course, they will then drop back because it's actually Eliud Kipchoge who's got to run a good distance. And sometimes you can go off too quick as the pacemaker, and they're not going to follow you at all. You have to get the pacing right depending what the athlete wants and needs and what they can cope with as well. Okay, they're coming up. The pacemakers are now departing out the side. They're going to give Eliud Kipchoge the sprint home so he can, well, he's not really sprinting, he's just entertaining the crowd. He literally just has to get under 2 hours. Ideally, you want to get fast as you can under 2 hours, but this is the first time anyone's gone under 2 hours. Aided, may I add, this is not an official world record. And there he goes. Brilliant.
Neil Armstrong we had on the moon in 1969. We had Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile 65 years ago. Edmund Hillary, the first man to climb Everest in 1953. We have 1 minute to go. Eliud Kipchoge is on his way here.
It's not going to be a minute.
This humble farmer who used to run 2 miles to school every day and back. He used to go to the nearest town on his bike to sell milk at the local market. And now, through hard work and discipline, he's pointing. Come on, he says. Eliud Kipchoge has the hand of history on his shoulder.
Whoa!
On his shoulder. 140, the unofficial time.
There's his wife.
Eliud.
It's a moment. You can see it's a moment. Everyone's cheering with him. How they are cheering. This is brilliant. Okay, a bit ironic then he has to weigh himself and then do all these scientific tests, providing that and to prove that it's not done with performance enhancing aid, which in the form of injectables and water-based under the water-based rules, which is ironic really, because they've utilized every performance enhancing thing they've had available to them, from exchangeable pacemakers to a pace car to specific special running shoes, which are legal. It's interesting how they've done the marathon here. This might change how we do, well, not necessarily change how we do marathons, but with athletics looking to expand into new territories, into new markets, having maybe I can envision in the future that kind of pack formation, maybe having for instance, a marathon team time trial. How can we? The marathon's one of the big events. In the Western world, we generally don't tend to prefer the longer distance events. In places like Kenya and Ethiopia, they prefer the longer distance events, but they are more 3Ks, 5Ks, 10Ks. So what Eliud Kipchoge's done here will hopefully improve athletics and develop it to these more gimmicky events that we can sell to a wider audience. And you never know, it might even make it to the Olympics, whatever they decide to do, or the world champs. It has an impact beyond that, though, and that's the science that has gone into this. The science that's gone into making those shoes, the science that has gone into the performance, the training, how you train, the energy systems, and how to maximize those energy systems will go on and improve the times well beyond this publicity stunt.
The three things that determine distance running performance are VO2 max or maximal oxygen uptake, lactate threshold, and running economy or efficiency. So they have double the VO2 max values of mere mortals, and it's a little bit because they're small men, like putting a V8 into a motorcycle. With training, the number of mitochondria in your skeletal muscle and the number of capillaries around each skeletal muscle go way up. This permits people to start to work at 70, 80, even 85 or 90% of their maximum. So it's like going from having a tachometer with a red line on it in your car at 5,000 to a Ferrari with one at 8,000 or 9,000.
A modified version of the Vaporflies were utilised by Eliud Kipchoge in his 1 hour 59-minute run. The shoe is really unique as it is so light it allows for a massive stack height.
One of the key features of this shoe is the foam. It's particularly light, and that allows the shoe to be made particularly thick. We believe there's even thicker shoes out there as well, and with the current rules they could be made thicker again. That thick foam can deform a lot, store lots of energy, and then return lots of energy as well. The other key feature is this full length carbon plate, which you can see here.
Yes.
That adds stiffness to the length of the shoe. It allows the athlete to have greater leverage and also stiffens the front of the shoe, allows them to run more efficiently.
Eliud referred to running with these trainers as like running on trampoline. They are incredibly springy and offer a lot of force that goes into the actual track. Now, Nike claims that the shoe is able to make you 4% more efficient at running. A study by the New York Times followed 1 million racers who wore the shoe, found out that their performances were 5% faster.
But that's based on the average. So the average of the runners in the cohort in the study. And actually some runners may have had little to no advantage, and other runners may have had more advantage. There's a complex interaction between the shoe and the athlete, and that's really hard to understand.
Anytime we run, we're losing energy. If I have a good cushion, then I can capture and use the energy that I'm trying to run with.
There has been technology advances that allows significant increase in the amount of energy you get back from every foot strike. So we've developed shoes, and that allows us to increase running economy. So we're about 3 to 4% less energy is required for you to run every kilometer. How that translates to running over the entire marathon is really still unknown, but we'll take anything we can get.
Timothy and Emmanuel, you start also behind, but you come on the line.
We're working through our start process. We have 2 pace cars that are specifically engineered to control a speed profile very specifically, throw a laser, and ultimately guide the pacers into their drafting formation.
Try to be close on Stanley, eh? Yes? We are now on the course in Vienna, and we are doing with the 3 different pacing teams. This is important for a kind of team building between the pacemakers, because some of them have never met each other before. And for when they are coming in October, that they are comfortable, that they know what they can expect, that we get feedback and still can make adjustments to see where we want to make improvements, especially towards October, and that in October we don't make silly mistakes and that we can make them all here this weekend.
And that unknown force you're talking about, well, that is called drag. And what you're effectively doing is going within a pack. You are slipstreaming in behind another fellow athlete. When you're doing running and you enter the pack, the middle runner is actually using less energy than the person in front. The person in front is in theory dragging them round in clean air. Plus, you can also use the front runner as a hare to try, if they go faster, you go faster. If they go slow, you keep in behind them. And this helps to motivate that athlete to potentially run faster, push harder than what they would normally do, and therefore technically run faster. Now, drafting in athletics and in running in particular, there isn't that much of an advantage taken, but it's just enough advantage for you to potentially not utilize as much energy as a guy who's leading from the front. When we compare this to other sports like swimming or even cycling, where that advantage is greater. Also, the faster you are moving, the greater the effect of drag has upon you. So, for instance, in cycling, they cycle faster around a track than what an athlete would run round, and as a result feel the effects of drag more. The Grand Prix level of athletics, in modern day athletics, we often employ the use of hares, or otherwise known as pacemakers. These are professional athletes whose job is to lead from the front and effectively shield the pack from the elements, as well as helping them run faster. If you get faster times, people are more likely to watch, and therefore you're more likely to have a more exciting race. What the front runner does is, in theory, help block the athletes behind from all the elements, and therefore it prevents that force from front, the friction being the wind, and that can help slow you down. Now, if you're shielded from the wind by the front runners, you therefore utilize less energy again. That's why in the Grand Prix circuit you may see 2 or 3 runners in the more longer distance events surrounding the athlete. So you have 1 in front and then 2 or 3, either 1 in behind or 1 around the side, acting as a shield. Now, in the professional Grand Prix series, when the front runners go off, you have 1 or 2 pushing them around, and then maybe 1 or 2 behind in the pack itself, helping to bring them along and helping to shield them from the wind. By them going on the outside, that helps with that shielding of the athletes in the pack. This is even more noticeable, the effects of the friction placed upon the athlete, more noticeable in even more stronger windier conditions. The pacemakers were also interchangeable. They would come in and out in front in order to keep fresh, in order to keep the athletes at that fast pace. This means that the race couldn't be ratified because pacemakers have to start the race itself. For Nike's attempts and the Ineos attempt, they utilised a pacing formation. Now, for Breaking 2, they came up with a series of different formations that may potentially work. However, for the Ineos, they utilised an inverted or a Y formation. There were many draft formations that were experimented with before Breaking 2 attempt by Nike. These formations were devised with 3 main runners in mind. However, Ineos decided to focus on only having 1 main runner, so the drafting formation could be more effective. They opted for a Y formation with the 2 runners at the back. They also had a pacing car, but how much of an advantage did that give the runners? The pace car is an interesting idea. It gives a running time to the athlete, but also projects a laser on the ground so the athlete can keep to their draft formation. This idea has inspired the use of a light system that can be used in tracks for middle and long distance races, called wave light. The pace car has a minor role in effectively shielding the athletes. To what degree, it is disputed. Generally, the pace car does not play too much of a role in the performance of the athlete. Normally, it's kept about 3 meters away from the pack in order to prevent drafting or the athletes to draft of the car.
Nike and Ketchel say the car and clock had a negligible effect on Kipchoge's performance. Of course, Nike would say that, but it's also probably true. Aerodynamics engineers Stephen Ferguson and Chris Beavis, who are unaffiliated with the Nike project, ran a full simulation of the benefits Kipchoge would have experienced in the wake of the Tesla and the Pacers. But according to their simulations, almost all of the drag reduction came from the Pacers. Ferguson and Beavis estimate the car, clock, and Pacers together might have saved Kipchoge as much as 4 minutes and 30 seconds, compared to running on his own. But the car and clock saved at most 26 seconds.
is a huge undertaking. Whilst it's one man trying to do something, a moment in history, there's about 150 people here this weekend. So whilst we're aiming to run a sub 2 hour marathon, there's a huge amount that actually goes into that.
The Grand Boulevard at Vienna was specifically chosen due to it being, in effect, a long straight line with hardly to no undulation, with smooth turns at either end. Also, Vienna is at sea level, meaning the air is richer with oxygen. Though this can create extra drag, the thicker the air when compared to running at high altitude, running at high altitude means that there is potentially less oxygen available for the body to utilise. It's just basically harder to run in, even though you're getting less drag. Bends and elevations slow down athletes and can affect their running energy and economy and efficiency, especially sharp turns. It is one of the reasons why the Berlin Marathon is one of the fastest courses and has the 14 fastest times in history. Was also decided to run the marathon around about mid-morning, and when the temperature was perfect for marathon running, that being around 9 degrees Celsius. Generally, in extremely cold conditions and in warm conditions, marathon running drops considerably, especially in warm to hot conditions.
What the ideal course needs is to be flat and to have minimal turns in. If you have hills and then if you have twists and turns, that costs energy.
This is race control, lap 1 has been complete.
One of the potential limiting factors in the marathon is the build-up of body heat. So colder temperature is better because it enables a better gradient from the core of the body to the environment.
They're still ahead of schedule. They look like they'll break 60 at this stage.
The higher you go, the amount of oxygen you can take in with each breath goes slightly down. The lower it is and the closer you are to sea level, the more enriched the atmosphere is with oxygen.
Or transdirectional cranial stimulation is a popular brain stimulation method that is used to modulate cortical excitability, producing facilitatory or inhibitory effects upon a variety of behaviours. In our case, we're trying to inhibit the perception of pain caused by long distance running and the production of lactate.
Passing a very mild electric current over an area of the brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and we expect the effect of that is to improve your endurance performance.
So you're running an electrical current through our brains.
Lex's research has shown this kind of brain stimulation can make athletes push themselves further because they feel less pain by up to 20%, enough to win you the Olympic marathon by half an hour.
It's important to note that this is not illegal. Athletes can engage in if they want to, and they're not going to get penalised for doing it.
You know, at the build-up to the Ineos race, that Eliud Kipchoge, and as well as the other MD professional athletes of that athletics club, utilised this method in order to increase their performance that year. On the other hand, this is not something that you can do as an average person or an individual. And I wouldn't recommend that you do, because this thing is not available to everyone. And if they are selling this kind of thing, it's often going to be quite dangerous, because this kind of thing has to be done in a lab, has to be done in an environment that is safe. And those units that you can get online aren't tested and therefore are potentially dangerous. Marathon training has changed a lot in recent years. It used to be back in the day just getting miles and miles and miles under your belt and getting used to distance. Yes, that will help you run the distance, get you fit for the distance. But it's about running the distance at speed. And maybe a bit of weight training, depending on how they perceived it to be important for their training. Weight training is highly important for all athletes, including marathon runners, because it helps with their core stability and keeping upright. And all athletes need strength. It's not just about running. And strength training, and especially weight, can also help indirectly with running efficiency.
To do around 8 or possibly 9 1200 metre repetitions, so 3 laps each time. The first one is very slow, but they'll gradually build in speed until the last 2 or 3 will be quite hard.
Eliud Kipchoge and co. also had the benefit of sports scientists and the amount of knowledge they had and years of experience compared to the average runner.
So it's future Adam here. Sorry for not getting the video, or getting this video out a little bit too late last week. I got a bit overrun with work and stuff like that, but that's of course no excuse. Anyway, the video is here now. What I would like to say is well done to the kids who took part in the Essex School part of our academy, who took part in, and our members who go to our athletics club who took part in the cross country and the Essex Sports Hall. And those who qualified onto the next round, well done guys. You all did really well. If you're interested in going into our athletics club, if you're from the South End area, see that link below, check out our websites and check out our Facebook pages for more training tips and things like that. I'm Adam McCarthy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and naturally, as always, I will see you in the next one.